So, like, what skills do games designers have that people don't usually associate them with having?
Well, I think anyone in games generally is incredibly curious. I think, if you're more curious about technology, you may end up being more of a programmer. If you're curious about art and you like creating things, yeah, you're generally going to maybe end up more as an artist. But a designer is interested in everything. A games designer kind of has to understand how things work and is always interested in that kind of stuff, because you've got to abstract that into something that someone can interact with, or try and evoke something in someone. And so then you need to understand that. So you've got to be interested. You've got to be keen. You're not going to know everything straight away, but life experience obviously helps. So being locked away in your room all day isn't going to be something that's going to help a designer necessarily. They may get very good at the maths or things behind it that you think that would be valuable, but life experience helps you create interesting experiences.
Because I take it people just don't get inspiration from the games they play. They get it from just
everything's been done before, so a lot of people regurgitate and recombine and games that they like. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, we're in an age of kind of retro nostalgia, and so everything's being redone. You can say you're sick to death of it or not, but then if you're wanting to create something new, then go create something new and try and look not at what's gone before, but what else you can draw inspiration from. If that makes sense.
Have you got any examples of these like fresh new innovative games?
Ooh. Well, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on trying to create emergent gameplay. So it's not, you create a set of rules, and then it's how people interact with those rules that create new experience. So again, you can look at potentially things like Minecraft. That kind of, again, it's got a very strong set of rules that people then manipulate and through multiplayer and things like that into emergent gameplay. You've got things like DayZ, again, kind of the narrative that comes out of interacting with other players in this hostile environment. You've got things like Journey, with the kind of how people communicate and do things like that. So there's very interesting things that come out of that aren't designed, but they create kind of interaction you wouldn't expect.
There's that initial appeal of learning about games is going to be fun, going to be a bit of a DOS, but I take it it's
not anymore. Not anymore. Long are the days when people would just go, I like playing games, I'm going to come and make games. Long gone are those days. Those kind of people were in my year when I was graduating, and they didn't graduate very well. People are coming on board the course now, especially this course with the reputation it's got, with a lot more knowledge, and potentially even prototypes and things under their belt, because the tools are now there and available for free. And there's a lot more public kind of service YouTube channels like Extra Credits and things like that, which try and get good information out to people that are interested in that kind of stuff. Especially on this course, if people come in saying, I like playing games, and so I'm just going to make FIFA, or I'm just going to make this game again and again and again, we will quickly show them that's not the right way to do it if they want to get a job doing it.
What can you say? We're going to quickly show them the door.
No, can't do that. We're here to help them, not to just tell them they're wrong. Exactly. So you do have to have an open mind, but again, as a games designer, you're gonna probably ruin a lot of the things you love in games. That's kind of, again, it's like if anyone's told you about doing a PhD, it's like don't do it in something that you like, because you'll hate it by the end. And so if you get into any kind of 3D or CG, then you look at films and you can actually start seeing how everything's made. Like it's like looking at the Matrix. You start understanding it, so you lose the enjoyment of just receiving the entertainment. You start breaking it apart, and you're interested in the pieces and how it's put together. Again, back to the just being inquisitive. But again, you're now getting a different experience from the things you loved. They're now the things that you do for work. And so it's then some people describe it, once they're in industry, it's very difficult to step back from that and actually enjoy games, because you're always trying to pick them apart.
I think we can agree that video games, are a fun habit, and it's a fun pastime you can partake in. But is there any problems within the video game industry that you think need to be resolved?
Okay, so it's interesting you talked about it as a habit and it's just fun. I think that kind of undervalues what it is. As you know, it's an industry that's far bigger than film, yet people still don't take it seriously in a lot of ways. And we have a lot of tropes like the angry video gamer and the abusive video gamer that don't help any of that with the coverage in the tabloids and things like swatting and all that kind of stuff. So competitive gaming has a lot to answer for in its own right, kind of general juvenile behaviour. But I think that aside from that, there's things that are being combated here at NUA. Mary Claire's trying to get more balance. There's gender equality within the development community is a big thing. So at the minute, there's only about 15% women in kind of games development. Yet there's now, over the last kind of 5 years, it's now up to 50-50 game players are women. And if you look at markets like on Facebook, it's a lot more women who play Facebook games than maybe other games. But generally, it's 50-50 for a lot of the content out there. So there's things like gender equality. There's portrayal of different things that are slowly getting weaned out. Before, juvenile age in the 90s and things like that, things like gore and religion and all that kind of stuff would just be thrown around just because it's fun. Women with massive boobs, all of that kind of stuff. It still happens, but it's you think about it, it's very juvenile, and that's the industry is still very young, and so games being taken seriously it has to get out of that boys' club kind of zone to make content that is equivalent to film, where they do deal with difficult subjects in tasteful ways rather than just having someone jiggling around on your screen. So, there's lots of things like that to be dealt with, but then it's a very broad industry, so you can also say that for film. Film has porn. No one really connects them, but you're making videos, and that's where that juvenile content potentially could be seen as being. And so it's where the AAA content and where the serious content comes out and how that gets to a broader market of people that are interested in games. Again, you talked about education within games. There's all of that as well, and getting that to be seen as more serious. Kind of e-learning and training, gamified training and stuff is becoming huge. It's big money, it's very engaging, and it's very good turnaround for a lot of big companies to invest in custom development. And that doesn't get seen necessarily unless you're on the inside for that kind of thing. So it's awareness generally. So it's not just seen through people in the news getting swatted by teens in their parents' house and stuff like that. It's just making it clearly seem more serious, even though I think the average kind of age of games console players is still about 30 or something. So, but you talk to anyone on the street who doesn't play, you go, "Do you play games?" "Oh, no," and you can already tell that they're not. Yeah. There's an assumption about all of that being juvenile, but it's not all that. So,
where do you see games in 10 years' time, in the industry?
Being projected onto my eyes. Just there's obviously going to be huge advances in technology. You've got a lot of, you've got a lot of this augmented reality stuff coming along, the VR goggles and things, which are again trying to compete with previous attempts like the Virtual Boy, kind of 10 plus years ago, and now we're getting it all coming again. But now with the weight of people like Facebook buying up Oculus Rift and Sony producing their own headsets, we kind of struggled with the Kinect and that kind of living room space, and they're still trying to put technology out there that's pushing that boundary, and it's getting accepted slowly but surely. So I'm keen to see where the technology takes us in terms of the experiential part of this kind of industry. But you're still going to have your FPSs, you're still going to have competitive gaming exploding with League of Legends and other things like that. And so that's going to be taken more and more seriously, and there's more people watching that than other sports out there. Over 8 million people watched the World Tournament for League of Legends a couple of years ago, and that kind of viewership is only going to increase, and that's more than baseball in America. So it's just going to be taken more seriously. Whether it's because it's serious or because of the market, I don't know. But I can just see all of that expanding, but I can't tell you exactly how.
And finally, if you could work as an art designer for any company within the video game industry, which one would it be?
I think the easy answer that most people would say is Valve, and they've been recognised again and again as one of the best employers in the games industry, and they cherry pick very, very kind of good people that are interesting and not just workaholics or not just good at one thing. They're well-rounded people, and so as a community, it's very kind of fosters good kind of development practice, and it's and obviously they're very successful, and they've got Steam, and so there's money, and it's reliable, and there's all those kind of things that you'd expect in the games industry. Is usually a thing you always have to battle with is jumping jobs and jumping projects because companies go under and all of this kind of stuff. Valve is kind of held up there in a bright light as the place to work. But then there's a lot of other companies that are doing kind of very well. You could always, if you're working for Sony, you've got options to work around the world there with all the different studios and places they bought up, and EA and Blizzard and all that kind of stuff. So there's big companies would be nice to work for, and meet really interesting people and excellent professionals to learn from. But then I hear a lot of people go and work for these companies and they think it's great, but they only want to be doing it for a few years before they want to go off and do their own thing. And I think that's something a lot of people suffer from. There's a big rate of burnout in big industry and AAA industry. And so once I've had the time and the sun in my imaginary job at Valve, then working in a small studio making mobile games or making games for good, things like a project I'm working on would be great, where you can feel proud of a product. It's not just for money, it's not just commercial, it's something that's meaningful, and you've invested a bit more of yourself in rather than just being given a piece of concept art and making it.